What is up, my YouTube family? Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, then it's just welcome to my channel and not welcome back. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button because you will not be disappointed unless, of course, your taste level is lacking. That's a you problem. Y'all, before I get into today's case, I have to share a personal story with y'all. Y'all not gonna believe it, especially if you just saw my last upload about this woman who, long story short, met an African man over in Thailand who said he lived in Paris and set her up for the okie doke, had my girl with a life sentence locked up over in Thailand over some drugs she did not know he put in her bag. He met her, wined and dined her in the beginning, made her think it was gonna be something, dangled the idea of her coming to Paris and having a time with him, which lured her in, and child, like I said, she ended up behind bars. Now, I want to first say, to my girl's credit, she does not watch my content, so she did not see that video before this happened. Now, before I get into the story, let me set the players for you. Y'all know me. We also have Keelan here, and then we have Mimi. Now, I love Mimi so much. Like, Mimi is so friendly. I feel like man, woman, or child, rat, cat, dog, possum, she could have a conversation with them. She's a very people person. Very peoply. She loves to chat with strangers specifically. My girl love a stranger. Mimi is such a people person. Honestly, it's something that I admire about her. That she can hold a conversation with, I'm talking about any background. You could drop Mimi on any social scene. My girl can fit right on in and have the conversation. She's always willing to talk to a stranger. Now, myself and Key, not so much. And we're always having to keep our eye out for Mimi. We always having to watch her. She only 5'2". It's like, girl, you real easy to carry off. Okay, you could be kidnapped out here real quickly. So we are always having to keep an eye on my girl. Saturday, we decide we're gonna go to the pool. Mimi and Key live in the same apartment complex, so we're gonna go to their pool, have a good time. Before I even get there, I receive this text. When Mimi gets to talking to strangers, our antennas go up and we just know to watch out for her. Just keep an eye on her. When I saw 25-year-old French boy, I said, huh? Then I walk into the pool and the young man is chocolate. Now, I'm not saying French people don't come in chocolate flavors. I'm not saying that. Something about him didn't get French though. It just didn't. I put my things down. She is in the pool chatting this guy and I'm hearing his accent. It's an African accent. Key and I, we get into the pool. We're not rude, so we introduce ourselves. I forgot what his name was, but Key and I start having a conversation like over to the side. Mimi's still chatting it with this guy, okay? All of a sudden, he leaves. She flows over to us and she's like, yeah, he's really cool. And I'm like, Mimi, is he African? She was like, yeah, he talking about coming shopping with him in Paris. She wasn't at all like interested in that or believing that. She was just like, you know, whatever, but that's just something he said. He gets out of the pool and he is on the phone. Talking, not speaking English. And I didn't hear no wee, so I don't think he was speaking French. All of a sudden, he leaves and two other men come to the pool. One of them, we're gonna call Romulus, okay? The other one, Nestle. Romulus and Nestle come with a bottle of liquor. I'm not a big drinker anymore. I have a little piece of wine in a social setting. I'll have a cute cocktail. Aside from that, like any old given day, I'm just not trying to indulge in the liquor. Not anymore. So he comes in and he's like, hey, ladies. They introduce themselves. We introduce ourselves. He gives her actual name, Key, right? Romulus does not ask if we want liquor. He just pulls out 3 solo cups. And it's like a mid-sized cup, probably about 6 ounces. He sets all 3 at the edge of the pool where we are. He puts ice in them and he fills the cups almost to the rim. Now, he does open the bottle in front of us. Still, baby, there is nothing out here evolving faster than the scammers. The scammers are evolving at a rate faster than anything else out here, okay? So you opening up this bottle, me hearing that does nothing for me, girl. I feel like you could have put a seal on it yourself. I don't put nothing past a scammer. And in my mind, you could potentially be one. I don't know yet, but it's looking pretty bad. It's looking pretty scammy. He fills the cups damn near to the rim. There was like maybe a little bit of room left. I'd already decided I wasn't drinking it, but I still said thank you after he poured it. After he pours the liquor, he goes and sits with Nestle. They just sit in poolside. Mimi, Key, and I continue our conversation in the pool. We having a good time. Then Romulus walks up to us like at the pool edge and he goes, you ladies didn't touch your drinks. He says it in a very serious tone. At this point, my antennas are so far up, baby. I'm picking up all of the details. He says it and then he looks at each of us And then we don't say anything for a second. He smiles. And it was just, that moment was kind of weird because it's like he was trying not to seem pushy. The smile did not give genuine. It gave, trust me, I'm friendly. Drink this drink. So Mimi's like, oh, you know, she looks in the cup and she's like, I thought we were going to have juice. I was waiting on juice. It's just straight liquor. Romulus is like, I'll get you juice. He goes and gets some juice. Brings it, tops off the cups. He can barely top off the cups because he's put so much liquor in it. They pick up their cups, they're sipping. Girl, I'm not gonna sip this. Not even for you. Like, you didn't even, first of all, you didn't even ask if I drank. What if I don't drink? You didn't even ask. So they're sipping and I'm like, this is much better. Thank you. And then he smiles again and he goes back over there with Nestle. We go back to our conversation. Romulus comes back and he gets into the pool this time. And one thing about it, I feel like it's very rude if a conversation is going and then you just come up and you start talking over the conversation. You're not going to do me like that, baby. I'm going to keep with my conversation. Like, don't be disrespectful. So that's what happens. Key and I continue the conversation. Mimi is so nice, so sweet. So she starts talking to him and they start having a conversation. And I hear him telling her he's French, her being nice. She's like, I know a couple of French words. So they're bouncing French words off of each other. He's telling her certain like sentences. And I just can't help but to wonder myself, like, does he really speak full-on French? Because girl, I know 17 Spanish words. Like, I could tell somebody I speak Spanish and be like, do you know blue, azul, roja? Like, put a little sentence together. So at this point, I'm wondering, does he really speak French or is this some stuff he's rehearsed? Maybe I'm too dramatic. Maybe it's my imagination, but I was like, he probably don't even know no French. I was not sold on the fact that he knew French for real. Then Nestle comes and gets into the pool and he again asks us our names. So at this point, I've already given them the rundown of my last video on what happened. And Keelan tells him that her name is Nikki. He does this little weird, creepy smile. So I'm internally laughing because she has switched her name. Keelan said, y'all not about to get at me, baby. She has switched her name with the very same people she literally just told her name was Key. So it was funny. He said something about us not being truthful about our names. I don't say anything. I'm engaging as little as possible. Mainly because I came out here to have a good time with my girls and I feel like y'all interrupting that. But I'm trying not to be rude at the same time. They've asked Mimi if she would be willing or if she would like to go to Paris someday. She's like, I would love to see Paris someday. When they ask Key about traveling, she tells them that she cannot travel because she doesn't have a passport. So Nestle is like, well, why don't you have a passport? And she tells them that there's something on her criminal record that prevents her from getting a passport, and it's something that she's still currently fighting. And inside I'm cracking up because none of it is true, but she is letting you know, baby, I don't have no passport. I'm not getting no passport. Y'all not putting me on no plane, girl. Not me. All the while straight face. Like, it's very, very believable. And I'm cackling internally. So Romulus steps in. He's like, are you sure you can't get a passport? And she's like, I'm sure. Like, I know. He asked us on our record. And she's like, I don't want to get into that. You know, it's still an open case. So I'm like, at this point, girl, I want to join in on the fun. So I'm like, imagine you trying to get a passport and now what you have going on, they would surely think you were not coming back. It would definitely give fleeing the country. And we laugh. And she's like, I know, right? But Romulus and Nestle don't really see the humor in that. They don't find it funny. I float off. I love to, you know, do a little dead man's float into somebody's water. I don't hear well when my ears are in the air. But when they underwater like this is all this above the water, I really can't hear. But every time I come up and stand on my feet, Nestle is right here alongside me. And so is Key. This happens like 5 times. I come up and then he's like, finally, he's like, can you teach me how to float? I'm trying to do it too, but I can't float. So I'm like, oh, it's not really something I can teach. But the best tip that I can give you is to fully relax. Like, you have to be very relaxed or your body will not float. And he says something like, oh, I would like to see you do that in the ocean. You could probably stay in the ocean all day. Baby, I'm going to nobody's ocean with you, girl. The best you're gonna get is this little 5 feet of water in Houston, Texas. Come to find out later on from Key, when I tried to float the first time, he said something and I didn't react. He went to like try to touch me in some kind of way. And so she was like walking with me as I floated to keep him from touching me and like trying to talk to him and entertain him. But he was so fixated on me in this floating. It was a weird thing. And I just thought it was really strange how guy number 1, he made that phone call He left, they came, we never saw him again. That's so weird. Very on brand for that being all scam. And eventually Mimi realized like we didn't want to be involved with them. And she did try to get rid of them. But to her credit, for whatever reason it worked. They got out of the pools, they sat there for a bit, and then they left. And we were alone and happy. And that is the story. And hopefully they don't snatch Mimi while she taking out the trash. Because that was her apartment complex. You cannot tell me Mimi wasn't almost in the same boat as the lady that I talked about in my previous video. It was very weird. My girl be having me stressed, and she just spent 6 weeks in Costa Rica alone. She works from home, and she was like, you know what, I'm gonna go work in Costa Rica for a couple of weeks. Please know I have her full itinerary. I'm talking about her ride to the airport, the flight information, the ride from the airport to her destination, the address of where she was staying, the contact information, and everything on the way back before she even left. And the entire time I was watching my girl like a little Sam, because of all people, baby, I'm afraid for my girl. I told her to even stay away from the monkeys, baby. The monkeys even steal children. You only 5'2". So that is it. Y'all watch out. They out here, girl. That might have been Philip. I don't know. And some people were asking like if they ever called Philip in the last video, whatever happened with Philip. That was not his real name. He never gave his real information, and he was in cahoots with the airport authorities. So they were not going to go get him. They allowed him to go through with his big package, and she was a bone that he threw to airport authorities. So they still, you know, can have them an arrest on their books. So he was not caught, unfortunately. And that might have been him at the pool on Saturday. But now that I have talked y'all's head off about my own personal life. Oh, one more thing. I finished You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty. And I started this last night from Geneva Rose, You Shouldn't Have Come Here. I haven't gotten far at all. Like, I read it right before I went to sleep last night. And instead of doing another community post, I'll do a dedicated video on what I read this month between like the last book and September. For the book girlies, we'll do that. Now, without further ado, let's get into the case I'm talking about today. This is a case that happened over in India, and it is a lot. July 1st of 2018, neighbors of the Chundawat family noticed that they've not seen any one of the 11 members of the family that live there. And the Chundawat family owns and operates their own grocery / general store, which opens every day at 5:30 a.m. They're never late. Usually they're there at around 5 a.m. or someone is there to prepare the store for opening. And on this particular morning, by 7 a.m., still no one has opened the store. The milkman has come by and left their delivery, which is still sitting there untouched. And so their regular customers and their neighbors become very alarmed because something has to be wrong. Now, this family consists of widowed Narayani. She is the matriarch of the family. 3 of her adult children live inside the house with her. There's her widowed daughter, Prativa, who lives there with her 33-year-old daughter, Priyanka, her son, Vavnesh, and his wife, Savita, who share a 25-year-old daughter, Neetu, a 23-year-old daughter, and they have a 15-year-old son, Dhruv. And then there was Narayani's youngest son, Lalit, his wife, Tina, and their 15-year-old son, Shivam. To not have seen any of these people come and go is unusual. The neighbors attempt to reach out to them by phone, but nobody is answering. So he stops by the Chundawats and knocks on the door, and still there is no answer. All that can be heard is the family's dog that is barking like crazy. And this dog is tied to the roof of their 3-story home. Also unusual. Now, this neighbor was very close with the family. He's known them for a while. He's really close with Narayani's youngest son, Lalit. So he checks the door to see if it is unlocked. And to his surprise, it actually is. But the house is completely silent. He has a feeling that something might be wrong, but absolutely nothing could prepare him for what he actually walks into. When he moves into the house a bit further on the first floor of the home, he finds the family, and the scene is horrific. 9 of the family members are hanging from iron bars that are part of the ceiling by these different color scarves. And it's very eerie, very creepy, because they're in a circle and they're all facing each other. They're the exact distance from one another. Very methodical, very unnerving. A 10th family member is also hanging from a scarf, but she is to the right of them, and each member of the family is blindfolded. Their hands are bound and their mouths are taped shut. The matriarch of the family, Narayani, is lying on the floor in the next room over, and she is laying beside the bed over on her side. Out of all the cases that I've done and all the times I've read, it was like a scene out of a horror movie. No, this is like a scene out of a horror movie. The neighbor runs out of the house. He is disturbed, distraught. He calls the police, and word travels really fast about the Chundawat family, like how they're in this house positioned this way. So before the police can even arrive, their home is swarmed by neighbors who are running in to see. These people are taking pictures on their phone, they're taking videos, a lot of which can be found online. If you Google their name, you'll see exactly what the scene looked like. It is a way too graphic for YouTube. They ain't about to flag me, baby. So I'm not putting the picture of them in the way that they were found in the video. If you can stomach it, Google it and look it up. The police arrived to the house at exactly 7:18 a.m. and they are having to push through people to get into the house. Initially, police, who have never seen nothing like this, so they are stunned. But they believe that the family was potentially ambushed by a group, because it definitely would take more than 2 or 3 people to ambush and overpower 11. And they also think that it was possibly driven by financial gain, because they have the store that's doing well. Lalit owns a plywood company that performs very well. It is widely known that this family has done very well for themselves. But there is no sign of forced entry, no sign of stolen goods. All of the women are still wearing their jewelry, and none of their items appear to have been tampered with. So that is very quickly ruled out. If not for monetary gain, then naturally one would think that this was something done out of spite and malice. Now, who would be driven by that is another question they're unable to answer, because according to everybody they talk to, their friends, their family, the people that are familiar with them through their businesses, they were very kind, very generous, peaceful, and devout. Like, these people did not have any enemies, at least none that anyone can think of. But the police is thinking like it had to be somebody. They had to have angered somebody to come in here and do this. So they noticed that there are security cameras outside that do pick up the entrance of their home. So they take a look to see if anybody had come to the house that night before. But the only people they see come and go from the home are the family members themselves. However, something does stick out to them. Lalit's wife, Tina, and their son, Shivam, are seen bringing in several stools, like footstools, into the home that night, which these stools were found at their feet. So they had obviously used them to step off of. They speak to Narayani's 2 surviving children that don't live inside the home. She has a son and a daughter. They echo the sentiments of the neighbors and the friends. Nobody that they can think of would have wanted to hurt their family. It doesn't appear that they had anything to do with it themselves, and they couldn't make sense of it either. So at this point, a team of forensic experts are sent in to check out the scene and try to make sense of the things. Now, the oldest son of Narayani, his fingers indicate that there had been some sort of struggle, and he'd obviously attempted to release his own hands because one of them was free. Once they noticed this, they decide to look at each of them a bit closer. And then they notice something about the children. Each of the children are tied extremely tight, and they're bound with phone cables not only on their hands, but their feet as well. The adults did not have any type of restraints on their feet, and the children's ears are also packed tightly with cotton. They don't show any sign of struggle, but that cotton is a bit strange. Narayani herself, the matriarch, she has the scarf around her neck like everyone else, but there is also a belt attached to a wardrobe right near where her head was, and there was a belt mark on her neck. 11 ambulances are called to the scene to remove them, but they can barely get through the crowd because, according to the police officer, several hours into them checking out the scene and trying to conduct the investigation, thousands of people had gathered in front of their home. The ambulance can barely get through. The closer they look at the crime scene, the more it appears that this was not the work of any assailant at all, but the work of the Chundawat family themselves. For what reason would they do this? Just 14 days prior, they just celebrated Priyanka's engagement with this lavish party. Everybody seemed to be so happy, so excited. They spoke about the future. Like, why would they then turn around 14 days later and end it all at the same time? Like, this was This was madness. Scouring the house for clues, they come across evidence of a ritual having taken place the night before, or at least very recently. There's a pyre with ash, and an altar, and this diary placed upon the altar. And it is the first of 11 total diaries dating back to 2007 that have been consistently written in for the last 11 years. And within them lies the very bizarre truth about what happened. But first, we're gonna have to take it all the way back to the very beginning for everything to come together. Back in 1988, Lalit, Narayani's youngest son, was 15 years old when he was involved in this bicycle accident that gave him a pretty bad head injury and resulted in him being hospitalized for quite a while. And in 2004, at the age of 31, he has yet another incident that I can't really call an accident. Lalit is involved in a confrontation. He has a disagreement with an employee because, mind you, he owns this plywood business. Apparently, there was a dispute with an employee about his pay. He confronts Lalit about it. The two of them engage in fisticuffs, and the employee sets the shop on fire. Unfortunately, Lalit gets trapped inside of his plywood business. It's a whole big ordeal. He does not believe he's gonna make it. He's just in there with the flames. His lungs are filled to the brim with smoke, but that is the extent of his injuries. However, once they get him out of there, he will not or cannot speak. He sees several specialists, none of whom report that his injuries are significant enough to cause speechlessness or any damage to his throat, and they have no idea why he is not speaking, but they don't see a reason why he can't speak. He is then referred to a psychiatrist, believing it to possibly be like PTSD maybe, but he does not follow up and see the psychiatrist, and the family does not encourage him to do so because it was kind of their belief that psychiatrists are for the mentally insane, the people who are wrong in the head. Collectively, they believe that only crazy people see a psychiatrist, and he is not that, so they drop it. Now, going forward, he uses a notebook to communicate with the family, and this becomes the norm, thus bringing us to the 11 diaries that the police will find. Even when Lalit's son is born, he says not a word. He doesn't utter the baby's name, nothing. He's completely mute. Now, me personally, I really believe that it was a choice that he made. And I believe he slipped into the bathroom every now and then and said a couple words behind their back. I bet he did. Not only is he writing down the things that he wants to say to his family members, but he's also capturing his own thoughts, like in the traditional sense that you would with a diary. And during this time, Narayani's husband, the patriarch of the family, he is still alive when all of this is going on. But 3 years into Lalit not speaking in 2007, Bhopal, Narayani's husband, passes away. And this is a huge blow to the family because he kept everything in order. He was the family's rock. He was the head of the family. He pretty much kept all of the things in order. He ran the grocery store. So his passing is a major loss. But shortly after his passing, Lalit has a dream where he is visited by his father. And in this dream, the father is explaining to Lalit that in the spiritual realm that he is now existing in, he is very powerful, and a lot of good things are coming to not only him but the family. Just as long as he listens, he is going to continue to lead the family from the other side, and he is going to use Lalit as a vessel to do so. When he has this first dream, he writes about it in the diary. He tells he tells them via the diary, and everybody's like, oh, okay. And Lalit begins to tell them, like, I'm not the only one that has instructions here. Y'all have instructions to follow as well. There are rules to follow, one of which being that everything that happens inside of their house is to stay inside of the house. They are not to speak about it to other people. Don't gossip. Don't tell your friends. Our family business is just that. And they're also not to have any more company. So in the 11 years that preceded July 1st, 2018, not a single person was allowed inside of their home. Regularly, Lalit awakens from a dream in which he has spoken to their father and records the father's instructions. The entire family has access to the diary. They are actually instructed to start their day by checking the diary for instructions. It becomes like their Bible. It is unquestionable, and anything that is asked of them inside of that book has to be done. Sometimes the instructions would be to cut back on their use of electronics, to disconnect from certain people, like completely stop talking to them, cold turkey, no explanation. Or sometimes it would be that they had to fast from certain things or certain people for a period of time. It also asks that they pray and recite this Hindu devotional hymn multiple times a day at 7 a.m., 12 noon, and again at 10 p.m. at night. Every night they are to recite this song. And the more they're getting into the habit of checking the book for instructions, following all of the things outlined for them, the more requests are made. It gets to the point where their full day, the whole agenda is mapped out for them. And they are always to first, before they do anything else, attend to Narayani's needs. Anything mama need, if she needs some water, some tea, her feet rubbed, they are to do it without question. Now, one night while they're all together reciting this chant, singing this song, Lalit suddenly begins to sing it right along with them. Now, me, myself, I think he forgot he wasn't supposed to be talking. He got wrapped up in the beat and started singing, but that's just my thought. Everybody else is stunned. They all stop singing along. They're just staring at him in awe. And he continues to sing. It's very much given he has a solo. This man hasn't said a word in over 3 years. And Lalit attributes his newfound ability to speak to the blessings of his late father for his obedience to the journal. The entire family views it as nothing short of a miracle that has happened right before them. For them, the proof is in the pudding. Lalit has been obediently following his father's requests and orders and can now speak again. So at this point, they become driven by their own desires and wants to be fulfilled, and they up the obedience, baby. They are blindly doing everything that it asks of them, and coincidentally, their businesses and personal lives see more success, which they of course attribute to their own obedience. Priyanka's engagement is another something that they credit to their father. They feel like it's a blessing from him for her obedience. And the repercussions of not following the diary are also laid out in great detail. The diary also tells them if they have violated any rules or if they were in trouble for something. It would say so when they woke up, and sometimes it would say something very vague. Like it would say, you know what you did, I'm always watching. When you do something and you believe you've gotten away with it, just know I've seen it. And it wouldn't say directly what the person did. It would just accuse them of having done something bad. There's an entry dated December 24th of 2017 that states that Dhruv had been spending too much time on his mobile phone, which must be corrected. And it constantly drives the idea that they need to listen to and obey Lalit. He knows best. He is now the leader of the family. It says, quote, follow Lalit's instructions or else the outcome will be disastrous. So there's of course a little bit of fear mongering in there as well. And child, as a patriarch, he don't play by his Lalit. There was another entry that said that anytime somebody would kind of give Lalit the eye, give a little pushback, especially that older brother, there would be entries like, you all are making Lalit very anxious, and if you want solutions to your problems, you must follow his orders. And even though they had been given strict instructions not to confide in anyone outside the house and let them know what was going on, Neetu had confided in a neighbor a little bit and said that her uncle was possessed by her grandfather's spirit and that this spirit guides their family, but she hadn't gone into detail. She just said that. Over the years, Lalit goes from claiming to be visited by his father to actually being and embodying his father's spirit. And in these moments, his voice would change. It would sound a lot like the father, just like his father. So they really ate it up. And they were actually really excited to be able to visit and talk with the grandfather. And this is not something that he does often. And he does say that him visiting is not going to be an ordinary occurrence. It's God's will and should not be taken lightly when it does happen. And he also claims that his visits have very positive effects on Lalit's body and health and are very good for him. And in the diaries, they keep a log of his visits. And of course, he always ends his visits with make sure you're listening to Lalit, everything he says, or else. The last and final entry is dated June 24th of 2018, and this entry details a 7-day ritual that they are to perform over the next 7 days. This ritual is supposed to prevent the end of the world for the family, and every single detail of the crime scene is laid out somewhere within the instructions. The diary refers to this ritual as the banyan tree ritual. The final act of the ritual is to be performed at 1 a.m. on the 7th day, which is the same day they were discovered. During this ritual, lights should be dim, eyes should be completely covered, and it says specifically that a blindfold is to be tied to the eyes. Mouths are to be completely shut and blocked by a handkerchief. The state of mind has to be 0, whatever that means. And the diary specifically states, quote, "Make sure you are bound tightly. God should be pleased with your dedication. Use moist cloths to gag your mouths, and if not, use tape over your mouth." Lily is, of course, appointed the leader of this ritual, making sure all of the things happen as they are supposed to. In addition to their eyes and mouths being covered, their hands are to be bound, and he is responsible for getting everybody covered and tied up, and they are to stand on a surface like the step stools, all facing each other. In this circle, the exact amount of space between them, it specifically instructs them to stand on the surface at attention and imagine the branches of the banyan tree wrapping themselves around them. It says that this would help them repent for their mistakes. They are to perform it with unity and determination. And because Lalit and his wife Tina were both tied differently from everybody else, Lalit's hands were in front of him, not behind his back. It is believed that she assisted him in getting everybody into place. And they also believe that the children were tied extra tight to keep them from backing out, breaking loose, and essentially saving themselves. They are also given something to chant for 5 to 15 minutes, during which the diary warns them that the earth may shake and the sky may tremble, but they are not to panic. They are to continue to chant. Lalit will place a vessel of water near them. He will place his own restraints on, take his place on his stool, and in the final moments of the ritual, he'll give them a signal, and they'll all step off of the surface at the same time in unity, but they won't be harmed because the father, the patriarch of the family, he will return like Jesus and save them all. The diary does not speak about the ritual as if it's going to end it all for them. It speaks about the ritual as if they're being saved. It talks about them being rewarded for their faith. It actually has instructions for after the ritual is complete, they are all to help each other untie and put away all of the things used. And the mother ended up in a different room because it specifically stated that with her being older and overweight, she would not be able to perform the ritual standing on the stools like everybody else, which is why she was separate from everybody else. She used her dresser in the way that they had used that iron grill at the ceiling of their family home. Now, at some point after she went down, the belt broke, which is how she landed on the floor. Now, authorities believe that Lalit did not allow himself to fall at the exact time that everyone else did because he wanted to make sure that everybody crossed over. And they believe that he went in there and finished off the mother before returning to his space and joining them on the other side. Now, I don't want to get this wrong, but from what I read, typically even when there is more than one person being buried, every person has their own priest to perform, their ceremony. But they could not find 11 priests for the Chundawat family. They were cremated during a ceremony, and it ended up being hosted by just one priest, like all at the same time. So all of their friends, family, loved ones, the surviving members of their family that did not live within the home, they all attend to pay their respects, see them for the last time, and they do the cremations in front of the people. I was a bit taken aback by that. I don't know if I want to see somebody I love set on fire and burnt to a crisp. But respect for people's cultures or whatever. It's no shade and I don't want no problem. I'm only saying that I personally am not wired to watch something like that. And the surviving brother, had made a decision the day that they were found to donate all of their eyes, believing that that would in some way keep them alive. So he's spoken about how that has brought him comfort. And despite the presence of the journals, which completely laid out everything, all of the details, he had a hard time believing it because he said he didn't know his family to be superstitious, only religious, and he saw none of this coming. Because when they said don't talk to anybody outside this house about what's going on in it, that also meant their family members that didn't live there. So he wasn't able to see any of this coming. It was a real tough, hard pill to swallow for not only him, but the sister and other relatives. Now, in hindsight, he and the neighbor who was friends with Lilith, remember, did say that they noticed over the preceding months that Lilith had become a little bit distant. He wasn't as talkative, especially at the ceremony that they had for his niece who was newly engaged 14 days prior. He was very standoffish. He wasn't talking a lot, but they didn't really think anything of it. Something else that I found really interesting is the fact that Tina, Lilith's wife, had a master's degree in sociology. Like, girl, could you not see through your husband's mess? I want to know what y'all think about the whole situation. I think something might have went wrong when he was knocked off that bike. I don't believe he was right ever since. Let me know your thoughts. Comment down below, like the video if you have not, subscribe to the channel if you have not, and share it as always. I appreciate you so much for spending your time with me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Peace. And not welcome back. I always forget what I say. It's giving early onset dementia. 48, what? Girl, 48 is tearing me up, baby. Why are so many people 48? He's really good friends with Narayane's youngest son, Lalit. So at this point, he is a bit concerned about what he may find, but nothing prepared him, or prepared, girl. What is it? Okay, he confronts Lalit. So his loss is the more requested, okay, and he not contributes, girl. Priyanka's engagement is something that the last journal entry is dated June 4th. No, it's not. The final act of the ritual is to be performed on. The diary warns them that the earth may